Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome back to another weekly developer Q&A session for EVE Echoes. Each week the developers take a series of questions posed by you, the community, they respond to those questions, and then I go through the questions and the answers, adding my own personal thoughts and opinions. This gives me a nice little platform to talk about the development of EVE Echoes, how it works, how some of these things could impact the game, and actually talk about how that could be positive or negative, and maybe talk a little bit about game design to showcase what this game really could do with. This week's developer Q&A, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to put it right out there from the start, is disappointing. We've got 3 questions only. None of them are of anything remotely useful. We're going to be talking about the AI nanocore and implants, because we're stuck with these things until the game dies. Now, if you do enjoy this video, please let me know. Hit like on it and drop a comment down below, letting me know your thoughts and opinions about the questions asked this week. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into the developer Q&A for the week of the 18th to 24th of April. Question number 1 then. Will the AI nanocore have an option to remove the auto orbit soon? Mike responds, yes, the option to remove the auto orbit will be available in the future. In the future. In the future. This is the famous 3-word phrase that means sometime between now and the inevitable heat death of the universe. We've still got things that they said in the future back in like 2020 that still aren't in the game now. So yeah, when I see those 3 words, I have very little hope for anything. This one, however, is probably an exception to that, as we'll discuss in a moment. Currently, says Mike, you can achieve a similar effect by adjusting the ship's speed by dragging the speed bar in outer space. Awesome! You can make our absolutely awful AI nanocore work by just slowing your ship down. That's their genius response on this one. Now look, again, before we go any further in this, I need to differentiate what I mean by core team and netties. When I say netties, I mean the people at the top. When I say core team, or the developers, what I actually mean there are people like Cloud, Melos, Lance. People who do have a vague understanding of how this game works. Now the core team's job is to design things that should be added to the game. They talk about balance, they talk about things that would help the game state and help players enjoy things better. They then go off to Netties Central, or just to Netties, who then say yes or no to the different project ideas and then assign staff to work on it. Now, the reason this is so important is because this becomes symptomatic of the issues that we have with the AI nanocore. In that, essentially, the development team, that is, Lance, Melos, Cloud, all of these guys, have gone through and said, well, this is what our community wants, this is how we can do it. Netties have then said, cool, that sounds like a good idea, we can make some money off that. Here is a team of programmers and artists and sound designers, etc., to make all of this actually happen and come together. Now, this means the people actually developing this, designing it, coding it, probably haven't worked on Echoes before. If they have, it's just in passing on some completely unrelated other project. That means those people don't actually have a clue what the AI nanocore is supposed to do. They have no context to it. So essentially they've been given a brief that says this ship goes out into combat and it does everything automatically. So therefore they've gone, right, well, it means when it goes into combat it needs to lock onto everything. Once it's locked onto everything, it needs to activate all of the modules at once to shoot, because that's how this game works apparently, and then when there's no enemies it switches everything off. This means there is a delay between waves. When there's no enemies, so everything gets switched off, they lock onto everything and it just repeats. It is such a terrible design that anyone who actually plays the game could have told you ahead of time. Ultimately, if you look at the RMT bots, the mining bots and the ratting bots that were created by the various different, actual botting companies who are, farming ISK to sell to you illegally, then essentially those people managed to get this to work because those people understand the game. I know people in the past, we've kicked a few out of Catskull way back when, who had figured out how to write a script that ran a mining bot. Obviously, you know that Catskull and Void and how we stand on bots at the moment, in that so much as we want nothing to do with them, obviously. And I feel like I'm digging a hole here because I know that there's always going to be people going, oh, well, actually, don't you know that we found... Whatever, I don't care about the in-game politics anymore. I do this kind of stuff, I talk about the game design. I don't give a crap about in-game politics, so take that stuff and run away with it, please. Take a long walk off a short pier. Anyway, so when we talk about the RMT bots, they got those to work because those are players who understand how the game operates. NetEase just kind of threw a group of people who are probably pretty competent coders at the problem without having any context or understanding, which is why this bot is terrible. But NetEase have a thing, are absolutely subscribers to the sunken cost fallacy. We've poured money into this, it doesn't work, therefore we need to pour more money into it until it does work, rather than just going, no, okay, this was a failure, let's just write it off as a failure and get on with developing actual stuff that the game needs. No, they won't. They won't, because they've already spent money on this. They want to have a functional product, which means we are going to get constant updates to this. Same with everything else. If it's something tied to monetization and it doesn't work properly, it will get constant updates. Look at the whole corporations clash. They want this to be the big thing. The community at large turned around and went, no, we don't want this. So we decided not to use it, and practically no one used it. Then they come around and go, oh, well, we're going to add weekly events and that to it, and we're going to push this and push that because they want you to use the thing they've spent all the money on. Essentially, when it comes down to it, NetEase are in the business of saying, we want to give our players what they want, and if they don't like what we put in, we're going to tell them what they want. They don't understand the players, they just give us what they think we want. When we say that's not what we want, they just go, yeah, it is, here's more stuff to make you want it. That's their business strategy, and that's what's going on here. I do believe they will add this ability to change the auto-orbit on this core in the future, and I do actually believe they'll do that. I believe they will be pouring resources into this to make it work, because I think enough whales have bought this and complained about it that they will finally actually fix this. For what that's worth, I don't necessarily even think that's a good thing, but I'm not commenting on that, I'm keeping that neutral. They're just going to pour resources into this until eventually it is somewhat fixed. Question number 2 then, in case you were done with nanocores and other things that are just pointless to the game, here we have an implant question. Are there any implants coming that are defensive designed, similar to the thermal circulation resistance or something? Maybe build energy, when activated it gives you a temporary activation and rip them out with a long cooldown. Oh god. So Mike responds, we'll continuously update the types of implants to help pilots deal with various situations they may encounter, including implants that provide temporary defense boosts. Now, I was talking to Bradrick yesterday. He wrote me an absolute wall of text on my Discord DMs, and I sat there going through this all, and it's about a conversation he was having with another content creator. And when I say a wall of text from Bradrick, I actually really appreciate those. The guy knows his stuff and does a lot of research, and he lays his points out nice and clearly. It's my kind of conversation. But he'd had a conversation with another one of the content creators, and they were at odds regarding a particular point regarding balance. Now, when I talk about this, I'm obviously going to reveal who it is, but essentially it's about how warp core optimization works. And that ultimately comes down to not the warp core optimizers or the rigs, which I do personally believe should have downsides. I believe everything should have downsides in the game to make for meaningful choices, but that's beyond the scope of this conversation. What he points out is that the biggest issue with Echoes isn't things like warp core optimizers allowing players to disengage, it's ridiculous nanocores, it's implants and stuff like this that just pushes everything, it's the constant power creep. If you've watched my video where we go through the dev talks, you'll see that they talk a lot about balance and how they decide what's going to be balanced and how they're going to balance things, but it's an ultimately failing game, it's a pointless fight. Because how do you balance anything when the next update is always going to be, this thing is bigger and better than the last thing so that you pay money for it, right? I don't think people necessarily actually appreciate how much power creep has gone into this game. If you put a load of ships side by side without nanocores, things actually aren't that imbalanced. The second you start adding nanocores to the mix, things become imbalanced. The second you add implants to the list, things become unbalanced. And the more of these different variables you add, it's multiplicative. It's not like, oh, a ship is X, and then it becomes X plus Y when you add the nanocore, and X plus Z when you add the implant. So if you have all three, it's X plus Y plus Z. No. What actually happens, due to how calculations happen in the game, is it's X for the ship. Then when you add the nanocore, it becomes X to the power of Y. And then when you add the implants, it's x to the power of y, brackets, to the power of z. It all becomes multiplicative. Suddenly everything stacks on top of each other to create these horrific situations. Now look, I stopped caring about nanocores a long time ago, so I'm pretty out of date on a lot of these, but I'm looking at things now like the porcelain nanocore with that ability, the glaze mode, is it? That just basically allows you to completely ignore everything. You just go, oh, I'm in a bad situation. Oh, well, look, I'm suddenly just going to escape everything. This whole, it's not a micro jump drive, what do they call it? The micro eject or whatever, that just, oh, what's that? You can suddenly do this massive burst of speed away and be immune to webs and things like that. That'll be cool, that'll be fun, except it completely breaks game balance. When you look at the ability of ships to suddenly do things, we're not talking about warp core optimizers anymore, we're talking about the Death Wish nanocore, because who cares that your ship can get 6 or 12 points of warp core optimization out of its rigs? It's doing that theoretically at the expense of auxiliary thrusters or polycarbon engine housings, stuff like this. And you can sit there and say, yeah, but that's not a huge deal. And I kind of agree with you. I still think those rigs should have a downside attached to them, but when it comes down to it, ultimately, if I have an interceptor with three warp core optimizer 3s on there, I'm sitting on what, -9 stability, whereas it's really easy just to put 3 warp scramblers on there and get +12. You can deal with that. It's the things like the Death Wish nanocore that become utterly broken in this scenario. And the same is true here with implants. When you now want an implant that can suddenly give you defenses, what you're going to see is NetEase essentially gives you a big red button that means you take nothing at all. It's notable that the Rorqual does not have its Nexus. The big panic... sorry, not the Nexus, the panic-induced core. I forget exactly what it stands for, but Nexus is the N in it, panic button, which essentially makes the Rorqual almost invulnerable for like 2 minutes, so that, you know, your friends and that can come to your rescue. Now, ultimately, that wasn't included, because I think even NetEase realised that that would just break things. And so now, when you start asking for a defensive implant that essentially does the same thing, you know as well as I do. You can sit there and go, oh, well, maybe it won't be like that, but you know as well as I do it will be. If NetEase are going to add an implant, it needs to be something that is exciting enough for people to drop real money on, which means it has to be powerful. And the second they've balanced the game and then they add this new implant, it immediately throws the balance out, because we have constant power creep in this game. So, yeah, maybe it's an implant that builds up energy and then when activated gives you a temporary activation and rep amount with a long cooldown, so faster reps and, you know, bigger reps per cycle, that kind of thing. On the surface, this looks harmless enough until you suddenly realise that this becomes one of those stacking things. You've already got a nanocore that is going to do certain things like glaze mode. The ability to push this button and have that stacking on top becomes freaking ridiculous. And do I want to go into the details of how this works? No, I don't. Because quite frankly, there are so many different ways that this works. And this is one of those ideas that, for crying out loud, we need to fix the game. We need to stop adding new freaking nanocores and implants and everything that just pushes the balance further out of whack. We've got a game that is dying because people are leaving, and fucking stupid questions like this are just constantly saying, oh, can we get this new and exciting thing that breaks it all further? If I spend money, can I get a powerful thing? This is why this game is freaking doomed. Because for every time we have someone sitting there saying, I'm not going to play the game because it's not balanced. NetEase, will you please balance this game? I'm not going to pay you any more money until it's balanced. Some other jackass comes out of the closet and says, hey, I'll pay you more money if you make it so that I win easier. And so NetEase just go, well, this guy said that this guy wants us to do a hard job and says he won't pay us until we do it. This guy wants us to do an easy job and says he'll pay the second we've finished. Who do you think they're going to go for? Yeah. Exactly. This game is fucking doomed at this point because that's the design mentality that we all have. That ultimately this community is constantly in a look for the next big broken thing. That's going to be implants, it's going to be nanocores, it's things that NetEase can easily monetize. They can just go, oh hey, we're going to add this powerful thing to the game, pay us money or you miss out. and people drop money like it's a very hot plate they've just pulled out of a microwave. I don't know. They drop it like it's hot, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so yeah, we're doomed. We are utterly doomed in this game at this point if we're looking for any actual meaningful balance and longevity, because the developers want to give us the easy wins, and right now the community is just begging for the easy wins constantly in these dev Q&As. That's what I see. Question number 3, third and final question. Hello support team, so I flew the Nidhogger carrier for a long time. I have had all the hunter skills and also the skills for the wearer. Okay, there's a translation error here. Hunter skills, I'm assuming they mean fighter skills, and skills for the wearer, I'm assuming they mean the ship skills, like, the actual carrier skills, capital skills, that kind of thing. I've now switched to the Vasigo faction. The skills of the hunters, Nidhogger, do not work for the light ships for the Vasigo. That are extra new skills. Basically, what they're saying here is that the fighter skills don't work with the lightweight ships, so when you go from flying a Nidhogger to flying a Vasigo, very few of your skills transfer over. You have to start training new skills, right? I also have the bombing implant. My question is, does the implant also affect the light supersonic ships of the Vasigo, or does the effect no longer exist? And I have to wait until an implant for light Vasigo ships comes. So basically, the question here is, I have changed recently from flying the carrier that you told me was going to be super powerful to flying the versatile assault carrier that you've promised will be super powerful. And in doing so, I have now realised that none of my previous skills matter one iota. Therefore, should and does the bombing implant that I've got actually work, or should I be waiting for you to sell me something else big and expensive? Now, look, again, this comes down to that usual line I have to say of, don't hate the player. Hate the situation around them in this case. I don't want to hate a situation where a player has been led by the nose by NetEase into the latest big thing, only to realise it's a fucking lie. That's where we're at this point. Someone was sold the promise of the Nidhogger being super powerful and being the best ship in the game for them. Then along comes the Vasigo and NetEase grabs them by the nose and goes, oh yeah, buy this thing, buy this thing, buy this thing, buy this thing. Only for that person to realise that in doing so, they have to give up everything that they've come before, probably drop a ton of actual money into buying Lazarus units in order to reskill into the skills that do actually matter, only to find that the implant that they've bought with real money and paid to upgrade to maximum level now also doesn't work. So basically, when are you going to sell me the thing that does actually work? And do you not see, whoever's asked this question, do you not see what's going on here? Do you understand that NetEase have promised you one thing, let you spend a whole load of money to achieve that thing, then they've pulled the rug out from under you and said, well, why are your feet cold? Come over here, the rug's over here now. It's moving the goalposts. Constantly. It's moving the end game further and further away with more and more monetization, more options, and as soon as you think that you have achieved what you want to achieve, NetEase comes along and goes, well, here's the new thing. Essentially, you are on a treadmill, and if you think you are ever going to reach the end of that treadmill, you're sadly mistaken. We've got the versatile assault carriers, and you're about to be led by the nose to go and fully skill into this and buy implants and do whatever it is to make this work to the best of its ability, and in August we have Titans. So then you're suddenly going to jump into that and go, well, this is the end game, right? This is definitely the end game. Then super carriers are going to come along, just as you've managed to spend all of your money upgrading everything for the Titans, and then the super carriers are going to come along, and you're going to have to buy into those and buy all new equipment and buy new skills and everything for those. You think it's 60 days is a long skill trading time now. Wait until the super carrier skills drop, right? You're going to be training for 4 months before you can get basic 5. It's going to be utterly insane. But people are walking face first into this. Let's have a look at the response. The bombing implant will not affect the lightweight ship at the moment because, yeah, they're not drones, they're not fighters. But we might release lightweight ship-related implants in the future. That's not a might. Come on, Mike. That's not a might. We know that's coming. That's going to be the next big paid event. That'll be your next CyberX, that they'll suddenly drop all of these big implants, and it'll be like, I don't know, probably June or July, I reckon that will happen, just before the Titans launch in August, because you will spend a load of money upgrading your versatile assault carriers to get them all the way maxed out, only for them to pull that rug away and go, nope, it's now Titans, bitches. That's where we're at. Honestly, I still play this game for the fun of it. I'm not involved in any of this top-end bullshit anymore because I've seen what that is. I've seen what that is. It is NetEase constantly pushing you to spend more and go bigger or go home, go bigger or go home. And you know what? I'm just undocking and flying around, and I'm not even exploring. I'm just working on my own personal project still and trying to get that completed. I log in and I talk to some people whilst flying through space, achieving literally nothing. Why? Because I spend nothing. I'm not spending ISK, I'm not spending Plex, I'm not spending anything in the game. Like, I don't need to upgrade a nanocore, I don't need to upgrade an implant, I'm just flying around and talking to people. Eve Echoes has basically become MSN in space. And yeah, that reveals me as a 90s kid and makes me feel old, but there we go. It's AOL Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, AIM, whatever you want to call it. It's MSN in space with a few extra steps. And that really does suck for me. But hey, you know, I'm still finding my own enjoyment in it. I'm going to still keep talking about this. But for those of you who haven't realised what this game is, there it is in black and white. There it is in black and white. You're being led by the nose to upgrade into the next big thing, and then just as you max that out, you'll find that there's a new shiny thing for you to move into that NetEase wants your money for. And that's how this is going to keep going. And if you're looking at the EVE Online ship tree and going, well, okay, but it's just Titans and supercarriers. Once those are done, that's it, right? Maybe once they've got Titans and supercarriers, they can actually focus on going back to the other ships that I actually enjoy flying. Maybe we'll get the Tech 3 destroyers and cruisers. Maybe we'll get all of these other ships that they're missing. Maybe that'll finally be the day that they decide enough is enough. This is NetEase. Enough is never enough. Infinite growth, that's what they want. They always want more money. Even when they have all of the money, they will want more of it. That is just how they work as a greedy business. And yeah, they're a business, they need to make money, Benzie. Yeah, they do. They need to make money, and any money that they make above their costs is profit, but that's not enough for them. It's not enough to be profitable. They need to constantly be more profitable than they were before. It is infinite growth. It is capitalistic bullshit, and that is where this is going. We didn't have versatile assault carriers in EVE Online. They were added to Echoes because it was a nice little stopgap that could get you to spend more money while they were working on Titans. And if you think that they're going to not do the exact same thing with supercarriers, you have another thing coming. They will do versatile assault supercarriers, and then once that's all done, they'll start giving you new, bigger, more expensive stuff that is just so far beyond the scope of the game, it's unreal. Or the game will die, whichever comes first. That is where we're at in EVE Echoes, and I hate it. I hate that a game that had this much profit and promise has become a profit-making machine that ultimately just exists to squeeze you, the player. I may mock people who fly carriers and capitals as, you know, oh, you're just the people who want to spend the money because you don't understand the game, you're just going to keep spending. I can mock you in whatever way I like, but it would be false. I pity you. I pity you that you are believing NetEase's lies, that if this will be the last thing, right? This will be the last thing. You had a battleship. You had a battleship, and then you paid to get that nanocore that you wanted for it, and you upgraded that nanocore to the max, and you're like, yeah, I've got the best ship I can possibly fly. Then they added implants, and then they suddenly told you that no, you need to spend a load of money to get that maxed out to have your ship the theoretical best it could be. Then they've added the new golden nanocores, and even if you don't use the AI function, it's still an upgrade, right? You still need to pump all of those fully upgraded purple cores into there in order to get the maximum abilities from your ship. And then the implants are coming along and all this, and then they turned around and go, right, okay, well, actually, now you need capitals. Now that you need capitals, you need all those nanocores. Again, you need the gold nanocore, you need the implant, you need everything. Oh, what's that? You've gone into the capital you like? Well, here's a new one that's even bigger and even better. And now that people aren't enjoying those, we're going to buff the ever-living crap out of them to, you know, make you use those instead. So you buy more nanocores, more implants, you upgrade everything to maximum, and now that you've done that, oh, here come Titans. Make sure that you've got your Titan nanocore, make sure you've got your Titan implant, make sure you're giving us all your money. We promise this is the end this time. You fully upgraded that. Here's super carriers. Lol. Move on to the next thing. Keep going, keep spending, keep giving us all your freaking money, because that is all they care about. Yeah, well, I went full ranty Benzie on this one, didn't I? I promised this would be a fairly short video. It's actually the same length as everything else, despite being only 3 questions, because apparently Ranty Benzie is who I am now. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. If, like me, you have found an interesting way to play the game that you're enjoying without being tied into all this bullshit, please do let me know. I'm sure there are a lot of players who want to know what you're actually enjoying about EVE Echoes right now, because there is so much to not enjoy. Everything that they said in the dev talks that actually is exciting to me, like small ship content and, you know, new small ships, to me just looks like absolute appeasement. And it'll be crap, it'll be nothing, it'll be tiny, but they're going, hey, look, we're listening, keep staying, and keep spending. And ultimately, it's just gonna keep doing this same thing, really, isn't it? But hey, I'm here for the ride, I'm here to document it, if nothing else. So yeah, stay with me. Hope you're having fun, folks. I kind of am in Echoes. I'm, you know, enjoying playing Echoes a little bit from time to time, even if it is essentially just a chat system for me right now. I'm enjoying playing Homeworld Mobile again now, which is really quite interesting as well. I might do some more content on that. And as you know, I'm currently very much enjoying EVE Online, the game where the developers actually seem to care about their community at least a little bit, and are balancing things and adding new exciting content constantly, rather than just, you know, trying to find new ways to, you know, drag your wallet for all that it's worth. Anyway, folks, that's it for me today. I'm going to go and have a whiskey. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, but screw it. After this, I feel a drink is required. Anyway, I'm joking. I'm not actually going to do that, but hey. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.